What if the difference between average and extraordinary was just one quiet hour? While the world sleeps, there's a version of you waiting to wake up, not to scroll, not to react, but to create. 4 a.m. isn't about torture, it's about power, and the next 10 minutes might change how you see your mornings forever. It's a story about John. John wasn't lazy, he wasn't unmotivated. He was just distracted. Every morning started the same way. The alarm rang at 6:30. He reached for his phone before he even opened both eyes. Notifications, news, emails, social media. By the time he stood up, his mind was already crowded. He rushed through breakfast, rushed through traffic, rushed into work, and somehow, even before noon, he felt behind. At night, he would promise himself tomorrow would be different. He would plan to work on his ideas, maybe start the business he'd been thinking about for years, maybe read that book sitting untouched on his shelf. But tomorrow always became next week, and next week slowly became years. One evening, after scrolling for almost 2 hours without realizing it, John felt something uncomfortable, not guilt, regret. He asked himself a simple question. If I keep living like this for 5 more years, where will I be? The answer scared him. Same job, same stress, same excuses. That night, he made a quiet decision. He would wake up at 4 a.m. Not to hustle, not to grind, not to prove anything to anyone. Just 1 hour. No screens, no phone, no noise, just him. The first morning was hard. The alarm rang at 4 a.m. and his body immediately protested. The bed felt warmer than ever. The room felt colder than usual. His mind whispered, "This is unnecessary." Sleep. For a few seconds, he almost gave up. But then he remembered the question, 5 years from now, where will I be? He got up. The house was silent. The world outside was still. No cars, no messages, no pressure. He made a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table with a blank notebook. It felt strange. He realized he hadn't sat in silence like this in a very long time. At first, his thoughts were scattered. Random worries, to-do lists, leftover conversations from yesterday. But slowly, the noise faded, and something deeper surfaced. Ideas, dreams he had pushed aside, a business concept he once sketched out but never developed, skills he wanted to learn, a version of himself he had imagined becoming. Confident, focused, calm. He wrote for the entire hour, not perfectly, but honestly. When 5 a.m. arrived, he felt different, not exhausted, clear. For the first time in years, he wasn't reacting to the world. He was choosing his direction before the world could choose it for him. The first week tested him. Some mornings were heavy. His eyes burned. His motivation dipped. But he kept the rule. 1 hour, no screens. That rule changed everything. Without screens, there was nothing to escape into. No instant dopamine, no comparison, no distraction, just thought. And thinking became powerful. He started mapping long-term goals, breaking them into small steps, researching ideas the old-fashioned way, with printed notes and books. He practiced a skill he'd always admired but never committed to learning. Each morning, he laid one brick. It didn't feel dramatic, but brick by brick, something was forming. After a month, the change wasn't loud. No one applauded him. No one noticed. But John noticed. He felt calmer at work. When problems came up, he handled them without panic. When colleagues complained, he didn't join in as much, because deep down he knew something they didn't. While they were sleeping, he was building, not visibly, internally. And internal growth changes posture, tone, energy. He stopped describing himself as stuck. He started thinking of himself as in progress. That subtle shift changed how he walked into rooms. 3 months passed. 1 hour a day had turned into nearly 90 hours of focused creation. 90 quiet, uninterrupted hours. He had built a clear plan for a side project. He had developed skills that once intimidated him. He had written pages of structured ideas that were no longer floating vaguely in his head. More importantly, he trusted himself more, because every morning at 4 a.m., he kept a promise. Self-trust is powerful. When you keep showing up for yourself, your confidence stops depending on outside validation. It becomes internal, stable, real. 6 months later, John launched his project quietly. It wasn't perfect, but it existed, and that alone separated him from the version of himself who only talked about ideas. The early mornings continued. They weren't always exciting. Sometimes he simply planned. Sometimes he reflected. Sometimes he adjusted his strategy. But that hour became sacred, a space where the world couldn't interrupt his growth. And slowly, results followed. Opportunities appeared. Income increased gradually. Stress decreased noticeably. Not because 4 a.m. was magic, but because 4 a.m. was consistent. A year after he began, someone asked him, "How did you become so disciplined?" John smiled. He didn't mention motivation. He didn't mention willpower. He simply thought about the quiet mornings, the dark kitchen, the warm coffee, the blank pages turning into plans, the silence shaping his mind. He realized the biggest transformation wasn't financial. It was psychological. He no longer feared the future, because every day, before sunrise, he was actively building it. The 4 a.m. hour isn't about waking up early. It's about waking up intentional. One silent hour. No screens. Just creation. Do it long enough and your future won't surprise you. You'll have built it.